welcome to the race.
And the lights are out. Great start then.
The Moto2 champion steps into the team that's dominating the championship.
I'm Scott Mitchell from the race. We're here at Barcelona.
Sebastian Vettel is fighting for his career.
There has to be a title assault, and anything less will be a failure.
Oh, and a spin!
We lost the GoPro!
Hello and welcome to the race, or in fact, good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening. This is the race. Welcome to Super Formula. The 2020 season is about to get underway. My name is Sam Collins, and I'm joined here in the virtual studio by Leo Gorman. Welcome back, Leigh.
Thank you very much, Sam. It's great to be back and great to finally have Super Formula back on the air. It's been such a long way. It's been almost 10, 11 months since the Suzuki finale last year when Nick Cassidy won the championship. We got 7 more rounds to go for this season, albeit slightly compressed. We'll get more on that later on, but good to see you again.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Super Formula is the sort of missing element of the 2020 season. Delayed start due to the worldwide coronavirus pandemic, but the Japanese championship organisers have managed to get the season back up and running, and it is looking like a super exciting season. We're going to most of the famous race circuits. You're going to talk about that in a little while. But also, we've got a packed schedule, and it is going to be brilliant, but slightly different to normal. It's going to be slightly different to normal, but Leigh, I think you know where we're going to be going to through the year.
So for this season, there are going to be 6 circuits on the Super Formula calendar with 7 rounds. Starting this weekend, the Twin Ring Motegi. That's a race we're going to see coming up shortly. Then in 4 weeks' time, we go to Okayama, formerly Aida, for the 2nd round before moving to Sportsland Sugo in the 3rd weekend of October for round 3. Autopolis then follows in mid-November before a very compact December sees rounds 5 and 6 in Suzuka on December 5th and 6th. Then the final round, the Chaff Grand Prix at Fuji Speedway on December the 20th. This first round, as I said, at Twin Ring Motegi, the races have been compressed slightly to take into account the coronavirus pandemic, means tightened schedule, so only 35 laps. There's no mandatory tyre change. Refueling has been banned, and we do only have a single slick tyre spec this season. The medium compound tyre has been removed from the choice, and we will now have just a soft tyre in the running. Championship points have also changed. There's now expanded qualifying, expanded points for qualifying, going to 3 points for pole, 2 for 2nd on the grid, 1 point for 3rd on the grid, and in the race, the winner gets 20. 2nd place and the 3rd get 15 and 11 respectively. It's 8 points for 4th. Then from 5th down to 10th, it's 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Only the best 5 results will count towards the championship
absolutely crucially, because this change of championship points, that best 5 races to count, that's really going to play into the hands of drivers like Yuri Vips, who is racing this weekend at Spa-Francorchamps, as well as then going to Monza and Mugello doing Formula 2 because he couldn't get out to Japan. And quite a few drivers have struggled to get to this opening round. I mean, we've seen some seat changes and some uncertainty, haven't we?
Yeah, there's been several seat changes, and as you said, a lot of uncertainty. We only found out a few days ago, for example, that Kenta Yamashita, Kazuki Nakajima, and Kamui Kobayashi would be at this race. They got a shortened quarantine as a special order. They only had to quarantine for 7 days following the World Endurance Championship round last year. But Vips is not here. Neither of the B-Max by Motor Park drivers, that's Sergio Sete Camara and Charles Malaysia, are here. B-Max did have a replacement driver with Tapai Nojiri, for this round. But he was also competing in the Super Formula Lights. He's unable to compete. He was actually suffering from heat exhaustion, so he's had to withdraw from this round following qualifying earlier on this morning, which is a great shame because he actually did a decent job actually.
Yeah, there was always a question mark over him because they weren't sure because he hasn't driven the SF19 Dallara very quickly. So that's going to be quite an interesting, and he'd never driven the car before. And these cars are quite tough. They're the second fastest single-seater series in the world after Formula 1, quicker than Indycar, quicker than F2, quicker than pretty much everything else that isn't Grand Prix racing. And we're just seeing the back end of the starting grid there on your screen. Well, Leigh, talk us through the drivers we've got here.
The drivers we got here, we see 11th place. Disappointing qualifying for Nick Cassidy, the reigning champion. And, he's got this number 1. But will it be the last season? We'll see Nick Cassidy. We got second in the championship in the Okayama Moto from last year. He's actually starting 14th. Disappointing qualifying for him. We'll go through the full grid in a few moments' time. But one thing was certain, Sam, you'll notice a lot of these cars towards the back are actually Honda-powered cars. So what we do have is Ryo Hirakawa on pole. That was 1 minute 31.0. Then Sasha Fenestras in his rookie race in Super Formula, he qualified second with a 1 minute 31.3. Then Kenta Yamashita lines up third on the grid. He'll be hoping for a better season than he had last year. Toshiko Oyu, another rookie in the Super Formula Championship, he starts fourth. That's a 1 minute 31.5. Then you have Kazuki Nakajima and Hiroki Ushura lining up on the third row of the grid. And as we see the list of the rookie drivers briefly in front of us, we'll go through them more through the race. Yuhi Sekiguchi qualified 7th with Kamui Kobayashi being the only Kamui Kobayashi 8th on the grid. There was only one Honda-powered car in the top 8, by the way. Then for the 5th row of the grid, you had Narei Fukuzumi and Yuji Kunimoto. Then Nick Cassidy and Sho Tsuboi taking the 6th row of the grid. While Ukyo Sasahara, who's replacing Yuri Vips for this weekend, he is 13th on the grid, just ahead of Naoki Yamamoto. There are 4 drivers knocked out of Q1. They were Tadasuki Makino, Tomoki Nojiri, Kazuyi Oshima, and another rookie, Tatiana Caldron, is lining up 18th and last on the grid. It'll be interesting to see how they all get on. Some rookies there have not necessarily driven at Super Formula level before, but they've driven in levels close to it or somewhat equivalent. So I think there's going to be a lot of eyes in this championship this season. So as we see some interviews going on the grid there before this race. It's a dry day at Motegi as...
Let's check out those cars that create that level that Leigh was talking about. It's the Dallara SF19, introduced for last season, brand new car. Kicks out officially 540 brake horsepower, but it's got a single spec of very soft, very sticky Yokohama Advan tyre. That's a brand new change for this year. It's a single compound, no split compounds. The car itself, though, is very lightweight, powered by 2 different engines. The Honda HR417E 4-cylinder 2-litre turbocharged engine and the Toyota Biz 001F, again, an inline 4 2-litre engine. That says 540 horsepower. The real figure is over 600. But they've also got this overtaking boost system, 100 seconds of boost per driver per race. It gives you an extra 30 brake horsepower, and that's indicated when they're using it by those green lights you can see on the roll loop. It'll change colour through the race, and if it's flashing really quickly, they're using it, and it goes from green through to red and then off. That's how much boost they've got left. And when you see those lights flashing super quick, you know they're hitting that overtaking boost system and screaming past. And that overtaking boost system works by boosting the fuel flow limit. It's a fuel flow limited formula, just like Formula 1, just like Super GT and WEC. But these cars are so fast. How fast, in fact? The lap record was broken this morning, Leigh.
Absolutely. And one of the things you mentioned there in the description of the car is, of course, the overtaking system. And that's going to be critical for drivers such as, the drivers we would expect to be further up, such as Nick Cassidy and Naoki Yamamoto. Because with only a single tyre spec, no mandatory pit stops, it's actually really going to be the onus on the drivers to force their way through the field, make the positions. They're not going to have the strategy that they had last year. There's other elements to this as well. We mentioned the reworked point system, and only 5 of the 7 rounds count. That is actually, so it's actually the points from the whole race weekend. So that is inclusive of qualifying and the race. So it actually puts an emphasis to get points in qualifying now. And we saw last year teams Toms, Nick Cassidy actually drives for, often qualifying midfield and having to race up through the order. That's going to be a lot more difficult this time around, as we see that is Sasha Fenestras second on the grid there in his Kondo racing car. It's going to be very, very difficult. You cannot afford now to qualify mid-pack and try and force your way up the order, because the qualifying points that are being given away is actually going to be incredibly significant come the end of 7 rounds.
Now, something we haven't spoken a bit about is the race strategy here at Twin Ring Motegi. It's going to be a critical factor in this race. There's been a big rule change as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. The Super Formula, it doesn't look like it right now, but the Super Formula organisers have tried to reduce the number of people at the track. There's a limited number of spectators going to be allowed later in the season, certainly not at the moment.
I think it's 5,000, I think, is the limitation on the spectators at the circuit, I believe.
There you go. I'm not sure that comes in at the moment. I think that's later in the year. Satoru Nakajima here just welcoming everybody to the new season and probably making the same explanation I'm making, that they've tried to reduce the numbers so we can have a full season of racing. And because of that reduction in numbers and, of course, the wider economic impacts, Super Formula has, at least for the start of the season, there will be no refueling allowed and no tyre changes required. It doesn't say tyre changes are banned. If you get a puncture, you can come in and change. But there's no reason that you would make a tyre stop at the moment. So it's going to be a straight, flat-out 35-lap dash for the, Japanese yen.
Well, it's one of those interesting things, because one of the reasons the medium tyre got dropped at the end of last season was the fact the soft tyre was actually proven to be quite a really good tyre. You could milk it towards the end of the race. If you're pushing hard, you might lose a bit of pace. So there still is possibility for some strategy. Do you go really hard at it and then change tyres later on and kind of go for two fresh sets? Or do you, I'm assuming most of the drivers will probably try and ease their tyres throughout the rest of the race. I mean, the pit stops are going to be shorter because there's no refueling. That's the other thing you need to take into account.
Well, the pit stops will be shorter, but I don't think there are going to be any pit stops, because at 35 laps, you could absolutely nail these tyres. And I think the only time you'll start to see tyre drop up is right at the end of the race, because it's a half of what a normal Super Formula race would be, because normally it's essentially a Formula 1 distance in Super Formula, 250 kilometres, slightly shorter. But this is half of what we normally have from a Super Formula race. So I think the drivers will absolutely be nailing it from the word go on these new single compound tyres from Yokohama. And I think we're going to see a couple of drivers voiced concern that it'll be a bit like a Formula 3 race. Having watched the Formula 3 race yesterday at Spa, I don't think that's a bad thing.
As we see the onboard lap from Ryo Hirakawa as he takes the first turn. It's a very, very hard double right-hander before accelerating out and kind of leading towards the right-hand side of the circuit. It's going to be a tight left-hander here, braking hard, and eases the front wheel in, and it's another left. His wheels going right out to the edge of the curbs, and then it lets it blend out once again to a long back straight before coming to a kind of medium speed, lower to medium speed right-hander. And again, a lot of the corners here bleed out a bit, Sam, as you go under the bridge. Is another right-hander, and this is a long leering corner before you go into a left-hand bend. A lot of corners here are actually relatively similar to Suzuka as you go through the left-right before go across to the other side of the circuit and take another left. Some of the radiuses of the corners are quite similar to Suzuka, which is not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination.
So that's the fastest ever lap of Twin Ring Motegi. We're not actually quite at the end of the lap yet, Leigh, but this was the pole position lap by Hirakawa. And no one, including, as far as I'm aware, a Formula One car has lapped Twin Ring Motegi quite as quick as the lap you're seeing on the screen right now. We're going to upload this lap in full to the race YouTube channel, but don't forget, we are the race, and if you like what you're seeing so far, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Never miss a video from this wonderful new YouTube channel. It is still quite shiny and new actually this season. So and also coming up today on on www.the-race.com, there's all sorts of great lovely action. Of course, we do have the Belgian Grand Prix coming up and the second part of that IndyCar doubleheader in the USA. So there's going to be in-depth coverage of all of that, as well as all the Formula One news, MotoGP, Formula E, and of course, esports. And I think there's some news coming up for that. And we've got coming up to the national anthem of Japan. Okay, well, that was the Japanese national anthem. And when I hear that tune, it means a lot of things to a lot of people. But to me, it just means the start of great racing action. 1 minute to go, says the... it's quite a warm day there in Japan, so she's probably appropriately dressed for these conditions as the TV crews get in the middle and the mechanics move from side to side. The marshals will get their yellow flags in position just well. The Honda NSX Safety Car has moved out of position, and we are almost ready to go racing in Super Formula Championship 2020. Leigh.
Sam, just a note that the guy on pole there, Ryo Hirakawa, he won this race last season, so he'll be hoping to make it 2 for 2 and actually get his season off to a really top start. And really got a guy there in second on the grid, Sasha Fenestraz, a former Renault junior driver. He's really going to be wanting to make his presence felt earlier on. And let's not forget, at the start of last season, another rookie, then Alex Paley, also made his presence known in these early races. So, there are some quality drivers out there, lots of experience, but you also have a few rookies there who are hungry and eager to make their presence known in the larger world of motorsport as the cars get up off the grid.
Now, just before we get going, let's have a quick look at the race, the podcast series they're putting out on www.the-race.com. There's a Formula One podcast coming up after each Grand Prix. You'll see that after the Belgian Grand Prix this afternoon or this evening, depending where you are. Esports, of course, it's got a big news from the new boom in the world of esports. Formula E, the inside track of everything electric with Jack Nichols and the-race's Formula E journalist Sam Smith from just up the road from here. Season 6 review with Dario Franchitti has just gone live this week there as well. MotoGP, everything you can expect from there. But let's have a look at the track there. Great corner names: Victory Corner, 90-degree corner, V-bend, and the S-bend. And we've got those fifth corner. So they're just first corner, fifth corner, S-bend, hairpin corner. Very literal, the corner names here at Motegi, Leigh.
First corner is my favourite.
I like S corner.
And also, if you like all this content, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment to the Race's YouTube channel, and join the channel as well if you're one of the many valued members of the race.com. And it's a growing list of very, very, very nice people on our channel list, Sam.
Yeah, I think that there's absolutely a lot of it. I'm going to try and get through you all. We're not going to get it done entirely at the start of the race, but I'm going to try and read through all of those supporters by the end of the race. But look at that air temperature, 40 degrees centigrade. it is sweltering at Motegi Circuit. The 4.8-kilometre circuit is located near Utsunomiya, the home of Honda's R&D department, just a little way north of Tokyo in the mountains.
And that lays some obviously a bit of kudos as well to the fact that Nattori couldn't take the start following qualifying because of heat exhaustion. You know, at the kind of temperatures. And qualifying was only 2.5 hours ago, 3 hours ago, Sam. So it was not much cooler then. That would have been about 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock in the morning. So it would not have been much cooler. So that lends some credence to him suffering in the heat while also taking part in the Super Formula Lights races this weekend.
Super Formula Lights is the new sort of F3R based series that came out for the start of this season. We'll be bringing you some news on that a little bit later, possibly at the next race because that's not too long away. But the cars are coming to the starting grid. Ryo Hirakawa on pole position. Sasha Fenestraz alongside him, just ahead of Kenta Yamashita and Toshuki Oyu. Kazuki Nakajima is in 5th position.
As we see, the front drivers line up. Hirakawa won the Japanese Formula 3 Championship in 2012. He's not been able to follow that up with a Super Formula Championship as yet. He'll be looking to get his season off to a good one for Team Impel. There you see Sasha Fenestraz, the French driver for Kondo Racing, out qualifying his teammate. And another Japanese F3 champion, Kenta Yamashita, who's lined up third. We get the green flag at the back. This race is ready to go, Sam.
Yeah, we've got the 5 lights are on. We're about to go racing in the 2020 Super Formula Championship. Darting out of position is that Red Bull liveried car and immediately hitting the overtaking system. That's a surprise. That is very early to do it when the cars are still traction limited. But it looks like Sasha Fenestraz is getting very racy, then getting slightly off on the outside, Leigh.
Quite a few drivers actually went wide over the curbs going into the exit of turn 1, and that almost set off some horrible sequences in the back. As we see Hirakawa lead from Kenta Yamashita. That's Sasha Fenestraz down into 3rd place. Then 4th place, that is actually Kazuki Nakajima, as Fenestraz weaves somewhat to block Nakajima coming through. He's not successful for Nakajima. Hirakawa still leads as we see someone go off right at the back. Someone is in the gravel, Sam.
Yeah, I couldn't quite see who that was, Leigh. It's one of the Ingin cars. Not sure which one it is, too much stuff.
That's Sho Suboi. I think that's Sho Suboi. The 2018 Japanese F3 champion has gone off into the gravel, and I think he may be out of this race.
Yeah, it looks that way. He's going to be deep stuck in. That could bring out a safety car for 1 lap in for 35. We've already got action. Hirakawa leads from Fenestraz, Yamashita and Oyu. Nakajima is, well, I think Nakajima's in 4th. My details are incorrect on our timing screens already.
Nakajima is in 4th. He got 4th off the start. Now, interestingly enough,
there's trouble for one of the TCS Nakajima cars. His front wing is broken.
I think he actually got hit from behind. That is Oyu. That is the rookie Oyu who's just got hit. Toshiki Oyu, who started in 4th position, dropped all the way back. And I think he actually got hit from behind as well as at the front.
It's very much the first day back at Japanese elementary school as the top 4 come back to complete the first lap. And what a first lap. If that's that much action, we're not going to be able to breathe.
And Sam, it must be one of the things, the rule changes we must remember this stage of the season. Of course, they have introduced a full WEC style full course yellow system, which I think is just not being enacted quite yet, to replace safety cars, or to replace a number of safety cars, to allow and drivers to be safely guided away from the circuit. So we see here Hirakawa leading still from Kenta Yamashita, Sasha Fenestraz in 3rd place, Kazuki Nakajima 4th, ahead of 2nd Gucci, then Kobayashi in 6th, Fukuzumi 7th, Naomi Yamamoto 8th place, good start for him, up 6 places from the grid, and Kunimoto 9th, Cassidy 10th at the moment, rounding up the points positions.
But what I hadn't spotted, and we'll have to say something to the team after this race, Leigh, is the Kondo Racing cars have swapped position. Sasha Fenestraz has dropped down to 3rd position. You can only tell the 2 cars apart from that green strip along the front of Fenestraz's front wing. And in all that action, I didn't notice that the green strip had dropped back to 3rd place. A couple of questions already coming in about the green flashing lights on the roll hoops. That's the overtaking system. So if it's flashing quickly, the drivers have hit that for that 30 horsepower boost. And if it's flashing slowly, they're not using it, which means they haven't got that boost available. So you see at the moment, all those cars on the screen have got their green light on solid. They've got boosts available. They're just not using it at the moment. But you will see that coming to use when they start closing up on one another at the moment.
As we're coming towards the end of the 2nd lap, and Hirakawa is still leading. Now, you can see the graphic there on the left-hand side of your screen. It is very much a Toyota-dominated race so far, with Toyota-powered engines taking the first 6 positions so far in this race. Fukuzumi in 7th place is the highest-placed Honda-powered driver. He's only 4 seconds behind the lead, but we're still in the early stages of this race. Lap 3 of 35, Sam. And Hirakawa, at the moment, as it stands, as I said, it's early stages, but he's looking relatively unfussed. Kenta Yamashita, on the other hand, is not necessarily pressing him too hard at this early stage either.
Yeah, they're sort of keeping they're keeping their positions at the moment, Leigh, but it's this is going to be hurting the Honda engineers who will be here. This is one of the few racetracks where they just probably get up from their own house and drive to the circuit and watch things going on. They work less than half an hour away, and to be their best car to be down in 7th position, and one of their cars, this one you're looking at, to be buried in the back of the garage already, that is not good. So that is the end of the race there for that. It looks like what happened there, because the laptop's gone into the car. The two say, "Oh, that's Shusuboy getting out of his car, so he's given up as well."
He went into the gravel on the first lap.
Yeah.
So.
I think he just gave up on either something was wrong, they never got back out. Oyu there, they put the laptop into that Honda-powered rear end of the Dallara, and that suggests to me that car suddenly stopped as it came out of the corner, and that's why he got hit. He got shunted up the back by someone as he slowed down. Let's look at the start again, though, Leigh.
Now, see, 4th place car there is Oyu, and he eventually gets initially a good start, and then I'm not sure what happens here if he gets maybe bogged down, because he's already dropped down to 6th at this point, so nothing instantly wrong there. As we see here, Hirakawa getting a good start. Fenestra's got an initial good start, but then bogged down somewhat, allowing Kenta Yamashita up into 2nd place. Now, see, Fenestra's had to fight off Nakajima, and I'm not sure who the car on the outside of the corner was.
Well, talking about the difference that Fenestra's having to fight off Nakajima, that's exactly what he's doing right now. The red and white car, Sacha Fenestras, the Raffinet sponsored, they're all Toyota powered at the front now. The Kondo racing car, followed by the Vantolin Team Tom's car, driven by Kazuki Nakajima. And they've both been using that overtaking system. Didn't get any overtaking as a result, because Fenestras used it to defend as Nakajima used it to attack. That's why you've got the blinking lights on the roll hoop, because the drivers can look back and see, right, he's coming at me, I'll hit my button as well.
Sam, of course, is one of the questions we often get in Super Formula, and this one asked by Water Army. What is the difference between this and F1? It's a question we get quite often.
Yeah, this series isn't quite as fast as Formula 1. The cars are a lot lighter than Formula 1 cars. They're only combustion engine powered, so there's no hybrid system on them. They've still got around 650 brake horsepower, because they use the same engines as we see in the Super GT and GT 500. The races are all held in Japan at present, so it's a Japanese championship, and they are running on lightweight cars. It's another single tyre series, but the Yokohama tyres don't degrade in the same way that perhaps you might see with the Pirellis in Formula 1 do, which gives a slightly different challenge, as Nick Cassidy is moving up the field at the moment, the top of your screen just in the background. It's a different type of racing. It's a domestic championship, and aside from Indycar, it's probably the last real big domestic single-seater championship in the world, but that doesn't mean it's on hard times. It's absolutely booming, this championship, and it is now really seen as not just a route to Formula 1 for a lot of drivers, but it's also seen as a standalone championship in its own right. So once drivers have sort of finished maybe their Formula 1 careers or maybe their WEC careers, they come back and carry on racing in what used to be called the Japanese Top Formula.
And to actually emphasise that as well, the last few seasons we've had several drivers from Formula 1 here. Pierre Gasly raced here for a while, just narrowly missing out on a championship in 2016 or 2017, I can't remember which year. Stoffel Vandoorne was also here for a while. And if you go back even further, you had the likes of Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher, Erdi Irvine, Heinz-Harald Frenz and Satoru Nakajima racing this championship back in the day. So it had, that was all prior to F1 as well. So you had a huge number of very well-known, very fast drivers come through this championship over the years.
One of the things I absolutely love about Super Formula is that these cars don't have that silly DRS. DRS. I've never been a fan of DRS. I think it's artificial racing. Whereas in this series, and it looks like the TCS Nakajima car of Oyo is going to get back on track. There you go. What I like is that these cars, the drivers can use a little bit of a power boost. It's not an artificial power boost. It's an increase in fuel flow. So they get to use a little bit more fuel, but fuel tank's only a certain size. Refueling is allowed in this championship normally. This season, not because of the coronavirus pandemic. There is a chance it'll come back before the end of the season, though.
And for those wondering why not at the moment, it is mostly because these championships this Super Formula Championship and all its support categories are actually really compressed into just 1 or 2 days now. So a lot of categories still trying to get their same amount of racing in what are effectively 2-day meetings as opposed to 3-day meetings. And a lot of this is an attempt to reduce the number of people at track, not just fans. And there's a few people dotted around in the background there as you see cars parked on the oval. But it's also an attempt to reduce the number of actual mechanics, engineers, etc. Also working at the circuit. So the races have been reduced in an attempt to kind of compress everything into 2 days, hopefully just for this season. But I mean, for now, it's still giving us some great racing as we see the car circulating around. And that is the number 19. That is Sakaguchi, who is fighting off Kamui Kobayashi. There's a name you Formula 1 fans will remember well, with Fukuzumi in 7th place, Naoki Yamamoto 8th. Yamamoto, of course, drove in FP1 for the Japanese Grand Prix last year for what was then known as Toro Rosso, in place for Pierre Gasly. So, and he's a very, very highly rated driver in the Honda Stakes.
2 spots behind Naoki Yamamoto is another highly rated driver who should be in Formula 1, quite frankly, is Nick Cassidy. The Kiwi driver won the championship here last year, has enough super license points to do Formula 1 by some margin, just needs someone to give him a ride in the top series. And actually, if he ever wins a race, you'll notice he brings a can of Red Bull onto the podium, trying to make a point about that.
Well, he is actually a Red Bull affiliated driver. He's not part of the junior team or the actual F1 race team, but he is a Red Bull affiliated driver. And this is one of those programs Red Bull have, well, you know, where they have lots of, action sports people, lots of like cyclists, motorcyclists, all that kind of stuff, who are Red Bull athletes, but not actually part of any particular Red Bull team. And that's effectively what Cassidy is acting as at the moment. And Cassidy is on to pastures anew next year, of course. He's going to be moving over to Formula E, I think, with Jaguar.
I can't remember which team. It might be an Envision version, but I can't actually remember which team he was with. But Cassidy, I wonder if he's making that move just so his name is a little bit better known in Europe, so he can get the attention of those F1 teams, because he really does deserve a run out in that series. But in looking at the performance, you see drivers like Hirakawa here. There's a lot of the top Japanese drivers, because of the racing system in Japan. You have a lot of these drivers are paid professionals. This isn't a rent-a-drive series like some of the F2Cs, for example. This is a professional racing championship. It's these drivers' jobs to go and drive, like Super GT as well. And it's an interesting one. Mitchell Wallace-Force made a comment on the chat, Leigh. I wonder what you think about this, because I've had conversations about this, and I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to disclose on it. But he says that he feels that each championship, especially these single-seater championships, should have their own sort of blue ribbon event. You know, Monaco for Formula 1, the Indy 500 for Indianapolis. You could have the long-distance race for Super GT, Le Mans for the sports cars. Super Formula doesn't currently have one of those races.
Well, it does and it doesn't. There is the JAF Grand Prix at the end of the season, which is going to be run at Fuji Speedway. That is kind of a marquee Super Formula race, but at the same time, it's not necessarily marketed as a marquee race. It's kind of one of the races in the championship that just happens to have the Grand Prix title attached to it. And you're absolutely right. I mean, Toyota Racing Series in New Zealand have the New Zealand Grand Prix. The Euro Formula Open, normally when it is running its regular schedule, will have the Po Grand Prix. There is, of course, the general Formula 3 Macau Grand Prix as well. So I think there could be a lot more made of the JAF Grand Prix. It's certainly something we would like to see.
Well, I totally agree with that, Leigh. And if you'd like to see more of that, there was 7,500 of you watching right now on the race on YouTube. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because only 1,400 of you have done that. So either you 7,500 you don't like it, or you haven't hit the button. So smash that like a button, as they say in Super GT. Please just hit like and subscribe, as we say in Super Formula.
And there we see Kazuki Nakajima still chasing. He's still following around Sasha Fenestraz. And we're in an interesting stage in this race because, as you said, you can really, really smash these tyres. But with the track temperature of 46 degrees, in around 46 degrees, how hard are these drivers going to be able or willing to push it? Is tyre drop-off potentially going to be slightly higher in these conditions than it would be on another part of the year?
Well, a big thank you to Rampant Fury 925. He's also pointed out what would happen if Sebastian Vettel ended up in this series. I wouldn't rule that one out, actually. You might want to do some racing. But look at this battle for fifth position. Now the action is beginning to hot up. Sekiguchi there holding off Kamui Kobayashi, Nire Fukuzumi. Also at the back of that fight, Naoki Yamamoto and Yuji Kunimoto. Nick Cassidy isn't going to be far off the back of that group as well. And they're going to start getting racy with this is lap 9 with 35 in round 1 of the 2020 Super Formula season. You're watching on The Race.
And of course, one of the things, we've got an anniversary coming up in a couple of years, Sam. So one of the things that I kind of keep reminding myself, this is actually the 48th season of single-seat racing at this level in Japan. Starting way back with Japanese Formula 2000, starting in 1973. So we're not too far off half a century of top-tier Japanese single-seat racing. So, and you got a lot of great Japanese and international talent coming to Japan to race here.
Super Formula Lights, Super Formula itself. How about Super Formula Masters? RJ O'Connell from Super GT World is watching, as always, with us, Blinky XX. He says it's a shame the JAF GP isn't seen as a bigger deal, considering its lineage goes all that way. And I agree. I think it's absolutely a race we need to make a bigger deal of. We will make a big deal of it here on The Race, but something that could be a big deal any second is have a look at that Honda engined blue and white car working its way up just ahead of Nick Cassidy. He is down in 10th position, but that is Yuji Kunimoto in the other KCMG. It's actually a Toyota powered car, apologies. It's a Yuji Kunimoto in the KCMG car. I thought it was the other TCS Nakajima car, but of course it isn't.
And Kunimoto pressing Naoki Yamamoto hard for that 8th position, and not able to maybe just make the go into the left-hander there, but you can see Kunimoto's growing in confidence. He's following Yamamoto, waiting for the correct opportunity, waiting for the moment where he can actually make a dive through the former champion. Twice champion is Naoki Yamamoto, and Kunimoto doing a fantastic job in the number 18 car. As you see.
Yeah, I was about to say that KCMG car is really... Kobayashi is being very un-Kobayashi-like and being a little bit circumspect about making a mad lunge up the inside. But I think that is on its way imminently.
Well, I think it comes back to what we were mentioning a moment ago. With no strategy and no pit stops, so some of the drivers are going to be a little bit more circumspect. They're going to be a little bit more choosy as to where they go. They're also going to be more contemplative about where they use their overtaking boost as well, because this is going to be their primary means of overtaking in this race.
One of the things that a lot of these drivers are going to be struggling with, the reason you're starting seeing the pace evolve, Cassidy there now well and truly on the back of that battle, but himself under a little bit of pressure from behind, as it looks like Jarno Trulli, who didn't ever take part in the series as far as I'm aware, has the spirit of him is with the Trulli train going on. But these drivers, a lot of these drivers, there are no tyre warmers allowed in Super Formula, so tyre warmers are banned, as they will be in Formula 1. And it takes a while for the drivers to find the sweet spot on those tyres and get them working, and then the series sort of, the racing sort of picks up in that once they've gone through that phase of cold tyres to warming up tyres to now fully hot tyres, let's go racing.
And you see Cassidy, again, he's another driver weighing up his options at the moment. He's trying to he's looking at a way past Kunimoto. Kunimoto, of course, is focused on Yamamoto just ahead. Now, Cassidy is also going to be quite careful with regards to tyre wear. He doesn't want to get stuck behind the rear wing of Kunimoto ahead as we watch Hirakawa lead the race. Don't want to get stuck behind the rear wing of the car ahead, because that will tear your soft tyres apart. Now, Yamashita in second place is closing slightly on Hirakawa. The gap had actually grown up to 2 seconds briefly. So Kenta Yamashita, he's in a similar spot as well. He has actually dropped back slightly, giving his tyres a bit of fresh air, giving himself a bit of fresh air, and now he's charging once again. There's no point, there's no real good to constantly push if it totally destroys your tyres. As we see Tatiana Calderon 16th and running last at the moment. But actually, you know what? Still not only 23 seconds off the lead, so it's not actually, she's holding quite a good pace at the moment. So these drivers are still actually maintaining their tyres and also picking where they can really best attack.
And I think you can see that in Tatiana Calderon's lap times there. You can see how they're coming down. She's not learning twin ring Motegi for the first time. That's the tyres. Well, actually, no, that's interesting. Her tyres are going the wrong direction there, so she's slowing down. So that could be that she's pushed a bit too hard too early and she's losing that pace from the tyre now. I read that table upside down because, well, I'm sometimes not too bright.
Well, Sam, don't forget, it was a couple of races last year where the teams, drivers and us were taken surprise by excessive tyre wear at a few rounds where no one was really expecting it. And then we had other rounds where the soft tyre could have lasted almost to the end of this race. So it's still not totally beyond the realms of possibility that if a driver starts losing so much time that they're going prohibitively slow, that they may still opt for a pit stop. Won't necessarily do them much good if it just leaves them at the back of the field, but don't be completely surprised if we see one or two drivers maybe take a chance and try and go for a new tyre later on in the race with a new soft compound, as you see Ukyo Sasahara on the screen.
He's in for Yuri Vips. Yeah.
Yuri Vips, of course, he wasn't able to make it over this weekend partially because the Japanese quarantine provisions meant he wasn't able to get a work visa for this round. Well, hopefully we'll see him soon. Vips, of course, is racing in Spa this weekend in Formula 2.
An interesting point, it's just been raised on the chat, and I'd wondered about this earlier on, Leigh, and I don't have an answer to this one. I'm just going to point it out, though. RJ O'Connell usually has stuff like this, but I'm not sure he knows this. If you look at all of the drivers, they all have their surnames as the three-letter abbreviation, with the exception of Tatiana Calderon, and she has a first name.
Good question.
Yeah, don't know the answer to that one. Absolutely well spotted. Up the front of the field is, as ever, Ryo Hirakawa, followed by Kenta Yamashita, Sasha Fenestraz, the teammate, behind him, and Kazuki Nakajima. You'd think they might be getting bored of the rear ends of each other by now, but they are absolutely pushing like hell, these guys. But Hirakawa is so quick around twin ring Motegi. He is looking pretty hard to beat. I think Honda have got to be really disappointed by their form here, because in Super GT, the Honda is super competitive against the Toyotas, who are still the top dogs in Super GT as well. And it is the same engine, but roughly the same engine anyway, because Super Formula, like Super GT, and this is where it differs to, say, Indycar or something, or F2, engine development is allowed. Now that Kobayashi has woken up and hit his overtaking boost system. No, it's not Kobayashi, is it?
That's Kunimoto back on the rear end of Yamamoto. I think he's sensing some weakness for Yamamoto coming out of the final corner, and that's how he's able to close up on the entry into the right-hander. But just as they exit turn one, Yamamoto's able to just pull away slightly. Just a note, actually, for the most part, Sam, I need to follow up on this. A lot of drivers now are running about 1 second a lap slower than they were in the opening laps of this race. Some drivers are beginning to suffer a little bit more than others. And one of those is actually Yamamoto, who's running approximately 1.3 seconds slower than he was in the early stages of this race.
Yeah, I was hoping you weren't going to point that one out, because and of course the graphics are now going to point it out, aren't they? But I was hoping they would point it out, because I haven't got a clue why. Because I don't think this is tyre wear. It's too soon for that, because we're only 14 laps on the board. If they're losing that much pace from tyres, then pit stops might become a possibility, because that is a lot of time loss.
Well, there's also the possibility as well of they are being told to manage these tyres in order to get them into the end, so that they don't actually have to stop. And
look at that! No, that wasn't just trying to put off the driver in front where he's got his overtaking system right in. That is the KCM G car of Kunimoto, and it looked to me like he might be maybe thinking about tyre temperature. Is the temperature going away? Are they struggling to get these tyres working? Because if you look behind Kunimoto, you can see Nick Cassidy, and he hasn't really made any inroads on Kunimoto for a little while. There's just a little gap. And it's not the aero, it's not the wake of the car in front that's causing these problems. These cars are not as sensitive as, say, a Formula 1 car, which makes it sometimes difficult to overtake. But Kunamoto keeps on pulling offline there, and
could that be engine temperature, Sam?
Well, I wonder. It doesn't look like tyre warming. I thought at first it might be tyre warming, but it doesn't look too happy just to sit in line. And he's too far back to be trying to put off the driver in front, I think.
Kunamoto actually dropped a second on that lap alone, so that is an unusual lap, for unusual time there from Yuji Kunamoto as we go back to the leaders. Hirakawa still leading. Hirakawa is still managing a solid pace. It is the late 1 minute 36, as where most of the rest of the field are in the 37s and the 38s. And he's still managing that gap to Kenta Yamashita. It's still 1.3 seconds. Sasha Fenestras, by the way, let's not forget, rookie in this race, still running third, has pretty much fended off Kazuki Nakajima for the moment. There's a 1.5 second gap there. So good job by Fenestras in this first race, his first race in Super Formula.
And it's just been pointed out, so absolutely correctly, Naoki Yamamoto, Kazuki Nakajima are also using first name abbreviations on the board. Well spotted. I'm not going to try and pronounce the name. Well spotted there on the chat.
As is Kenta Yamashita.
Yes, there you go. So I don't know what the logic there is of that. I will find out. We'll get it. It's Sasahara. Yeah, now Sasahara is coming in. Would it be a straight tyre stop? That doesn't look like a problem, but I think we are going to get a tyre stop now. Check out the rear jack on this team. They've got a robotic jack that should go in. Oh no, it's the manual jack. Oh, that's disappointing. Normally the rear end mechanic just throws the jack in the general direction of the car and it jacks the car up all on its own and
slow away. Now, Sam, this is interesting.
It did the rear jack operation on its own this year, so they've switched that around.
This is actually quite interesting because Sasahara has pitted, and I'm assuming it's on the, maybe I don't know if there's tyre problems or not, but it's assuming it's on the possibility that they're expecting everyone else to begin to make tyre stops as well. Now, Sasahara can get laps in clean air and can set a relatively sensible times at a 1 minute 36, his early win with 37s. This can actually launch him several positions up the field because the order was still so close at this stage of the race. From first down to Tatiana Calderon was still running at about 24, 25 seconds. So if Sasahara can make up a lot of time here, he could actually end up with quite a significant few positions. As James Guthrie in the chat asks, what's that difference between qualifying and the race? It has been about 6 to 7 seconds so far. There's a 1 minute 31s set in qualifying. Hirakawa's pole lap was 1 minute 31.0. He's running in the 36.9s at the moment. So that gives you an indication of the difference in pace between qualifying and the race as we come close to the halfway point, Sam.
Yeah, and that difference is almost entirely down to fuel load. That makes a big effect because these cars, as I mentioned earlier, are extremely lightweight compared to Formula 1 cars. I think they're only about 2/3 of the weight of an F1 car, maybe even half the weight, but the Formula 1 cars are so heavy at the moment. Now, looking at these fields, I think it's going to be very interesting to see the lap times, the sector times that are going to start coming in from Sasahara in that Team Mugen Honda, the Red Bull liveried car. And if he starts setting some very quick sectors, I think we're going to start to see some fireworks from the front of the field, because unless you're in the top 10, it's going to be beneficial to come in, make a stop, and I think he's going to come, as you suggested, Leigh, he's going to come charging back up the field, and this is where the action will really get going, because the tyre, I think it's down to the extremely high track temperature. We talked about the B-Max driver suffering from heat exhaustion. It looks like those Yokohama tyres might be suffering a little bit from heat exhaustion as well.
Well, Sam, the lap times are, for some of the top drivers, are actually beginning to edge into the 38s now. So they are losing approximately 1.5 seconds per lap to what they were running in the early stages of this race. So I think it's not inconceivable, as we see Kenta Yamashita is actually still on a charge, by the way. He's closing 1.2 seconds to race leader Hirakawa at the moment.
He's on a charge lead, but he's losing a huge chunk of time to Sasahara. Sasahara's lap times are now beginning to pop in, and he's gone through the first 2 sectors. There's 4 sectors in Super Formula other than 3 like Formula 1. He's absolutely destroying the field in the second sector right now. And yeah, this is why we're going to see them all coming in. Calderon is in there for tyres. We're going to see everybody at the back of the field at least coming in for tyres. And I think we're going to see one of these situations where the back of the field do a one-stop strategy, and the guys at the front are going to try and go to the end without stopping. So you're going to see really quick times coming from the guys down the field. Sasahara now already moving up because Calderon has pitted. He's just done a 1:35.6. The fastest time is that, and just to put that into context, Hirakawa is doing a 1:36.9. He's taking over a second and a half out of everybody else in the field at the moment.
Well, more importantly for Sasahara, some of the drivers in the lower ends of the points are actually in the 30s, 38s. So he's going 2.5 seconds a lap quicker on that lap alone than some of the drivers running from, say, 7th down to 10th positions. And this is actually lining itself up to be quite a keen race, as you see. Sakaguchi there in 5th place, followed by Kamui Kobayashi, followed by Narei Fukuzumi, followed by Naoki Kamemoto, and then you have Yuji Kunimoto just behind. Cassidy 10th place in the green Tom's car, just actually out of shot. That is the top 10, only points down to 10th place this year, Sam.
Yeah, but look how much Cassidy's struggling. Cassidy has been dropping back and back from this back. He was on the back of this group, which has been going on. Second car in line in the first of those 2 KCMG cars is Kamui Kobayashi. He's hunting down Yuhi Sakaguchi. These guys are in strategically a really difficult position because they're not gaining any time. I think Sakaguchi isn't the fastest of them, but they're not, because of the tyre conditions, they're not quite able to get it done on each other and go off and set a fast run. Whereas those guys who aren't from Cassidy backwards, who haven't stopped, they are losing heaps of time to Ukyo Sasahara, who has stopped and is now doing a 35.5. He's getting quicker.
Question, Sam. If you're Nick Cassidy and you're 10th place and only looking at a single point, but are struggling to get close enough to overtake, do you say screw it, take a pit stop, risk that point, in the hope that the race comes to you later on?
It's a very tough call, that one. I think that's 2 sides of a coin. If you're headed to the pits now, you're definitely going to lose track position, and you're probably now going to, in fact, you are going to lose that track position to Sasahara and anybody else who's coming through. Calderon perhaps as well.
Actually, that'd be close because that'd be close because we've got to remember there's no refueling this year, so that they're just coming in to pit and that's it. So we're maybe looking at slightly quicker, and we see as an attempt for a move by Fukuzumi on Kobayashi, and he's done it. Fukuzumi takes 6th place. A Honda moves up the field. And
if you're wondering about those flashing lights on the roll hoop, as you saw that overtaking move, that's the overtaking boost system in action. So when the drivers press the button to get that extra 30 brake horsepower from the additional fuel flow rate, the light on the roll hoop will start blinking really quickly. That's when they're deploying it. Then when you see it blinking slowly, like you're seeing on Kobayashi, as well as the other car, as you can see right there, that means they don't have the system available, because after you've used it for that little power boost, it then shuts off for a little while, and then you can use it again. So you can't use it repeatedly one after the other to set one blazingly quick lap. But this is interesting because it looks like just the message, that looked like a radio call had gone out to the number 6 car of Fukuzumi, just saying, get on the pace now.
As I think Kobayashi's pace is really beginning to drop off. He's in the mid-38s, and Fukuzumi, he's immediately 1 second faster than that. So I think we're actually probably going to see, unless if Fukuzumi can get by Sakaguchi, we may see him disappear into the distance a bit. Because the gap between, if you look at 4th place, Kazuki Nakajima, then the gap to 5th is already 16 seconds. Sakaguchi, as you said earlier on, is a little bit like the trolley train. He really is actually sitting in front of this field and kind of holding it up slightly. Look how slow he is going on the apex of the corner. Now, we must understand, that's not just his pace as such, as we see Fukuzumi aiming to have another go. Oh, a broken wing. That's Yamamoto has hit the rear of Kobayashi, and Kobayashi may have a puncture as well. I think he does.
He does. His right rear's gone down there. So how's that happened? I didn't quite see. It was just behind the crest, and we were watching the battle, and Cassidy was having running there.
Kobayashi was a little bit slow. Naoki Yamamoto just ran right into the back of him. As we see Fukuzumi have a go on Sakaguchi. Can he go around the outside of turn one? He does, but doesn't finish it off just yet. He's going to get the switch back to take the position. This is for 5th and 6th places. That is Sakaguchi on the inside, Fukuzumi on the outside, but Sakaguchi has the pace. No, not quite. And Sakaguchi keeps it.
Yeah, this is now. The radio call must have gone out to say, right, you've saved enough tyres, go for it. I think the Honda engineers must have been on the radio to Fukuzumi, trying to go round the outside again. They touch. He's broken his wing on the right front. I don't think he realises, will that cut down that Yokohama tyre? It has. He's given him a puncture, and round he goes. Spin. Yeah, he's got a puncture there, Leigh. And he cut the tyre on that front wing. That could bring out the safety car. So that's a really dangerous position for the car. 21 laps completed of the opening round of the 2020 Super Formula season on the race. We're at Twin Ring Motegi, and there is a car in the gravel trap in a slightly dodgy position. And that is race over for that car, I think. Sakaguchi, he got his tyre was cut down just, they've come into it tight late. You can see the tyre's gone down. He doesn't realise, he turns in. Oh, it's not just the tyre, yeah, the whole back of the car's down. He's lost downforce and round it goes.
Wow.
They need to start that a little bit earlier, because you can see where the damage actually happens, where Fukuzumi just breaks his front wing. And I don't think Fukuzumi realises he's got a broken front wing at the moment, Leigh.
No. I mean, he probably will be aware of it soon when he tries to go through a fast corner. But as you see Sakaguchi off, no sign as far as I'm aware of the safety car, and I don't believe the full course yellow has been brought out yet. I don't know. There's nothing flying at the marshal post, so this is still a full green circuit as we see Fukuzumi on track there. How broken is that front wing?
Well, it was very distinctly out of position when he to the point where that is not fully attached to the car. The right-hand side of it is not attached. So one of the KCMG cars having a very long pit stop and trouble on the right rear as well. So that's out of contention, really, for a decent result. That's Yuji Kanemoto. Oh, that's all gone wrong, hasn't it?
And stalled, yeah. We just had a question in, Sam, from if super license points are available for this championship, and I can safely say yes, super license points are available for this championship. It's on a level with the Formula Regional European Championship and the former GP3 series. So the champion in this Super Formula will actually get 25 points to their super license. So it is actually a big win if you can actually get a top result in this championship.
That's why drivers like Yuri Vips are coming and doing this series, or contracted at least to do this series, so they could get those final super license points to get and qualify for Formula One with AlphaTauri next year. But who knows if that will happen. He's now trying to race anything he can get his hands on to get those points in place. But with the regulation that only the 5 best scores of the season count, that's going to have an effect on the way people drive these races, I think. I think people are going to be willing to take a few more risks. Particularly if they get a couple of good results on the board, they can really push like hell and take some slightly risky moves. And I think we saw that earlier on.
Now, Sam, we have seen a few craziness over the last couple of laps, but if you look in 11th place, you'll see Ukyo Sasahara is now running 11th place. He's actually taken 7 seconds off the race leader in the last few laps since he changed tyres, but he is 13 seconds behind Kazuya Oshima and currently running almost 3 seconds quicker than him.
Yeah, so, I know. That's he's just putting in qualifying lap after qualifying lap. There he is. Got clear track, and this is really playing to him. 23 laps. This is lap 23 of 35. If he keeps going at the pace he is going at, I don't think he's going to catch Hirakawa in the race lead, but he's going to certainly move up the field significantly. But we're going to see some serious overtaking going on, because some of those tyres now in the top 10 are getting pretty geriatric. There's Tatiana Calderon. She's on new tyres as well. She's moving up the field.
And this is where it actually gets quite interesting, because it's probably too late now. If you're a driver who's struggling with tyres, is it probably too late now to actually pitch and actually get the most out of those tyres? And are you at the stage in the race now where you just kind of say, screw it, this is what I have, I'll take it for the last 11 laps and make it last?
I don't think it is, Leigh, because Ishiura, Makino, and Oshima all have a sort of 12, 13 second, 13, 14 second gap over Oshima. And so if they take the advantage now, come in there, I don't think they're going to lose out too badly as long as the crew don't make some errors in the pit stops. But we have seen some errors. But also at the front of the field, you saw the graphic on your screen. Hirakawa's running out of pace here.
He is indeed, as Kenta Yamashita closes to within 1 second of the race leader Hirakawa. Both of them are in the 37s as we see Sasahara sitting in for Yuri Vips this time round. He's closing in on the points paying positions, which would be, bear in mind, this is his rookie race as well. 24-year-old, he's doing a very good job sitting in for Yuri Vips at what was, it wasn't like a last minute call up, but it was, it wasn't exactly, he didn't exactly have the greatest of lead-ins into this. He's, of course, the F3 Asia champion from last year with High Tech Racing. I think that's the championship he beat Dan Ticktum to last year.
Now, don't get that name wrong, because you'll end up with the same situation Will Buxton got in by misrepresenting Dan's name, and some of Dan's fans weren't too happy about that.
Oh, well, the life you lead as a commentator, how dangerous it is. As we see Hirakawa leading still from Kenta Yamashita. Kenta Yamashita is really going to be pushing very hard very soon. To actually, you know what, Sam, I think now we're at the stage where it's too late to take a tyre stop. With only 10 laps to go, I think you'd probably lose far too much time.
What were you saying? That's not a tyre stop. That is
that's still
stop.
Yeah, that is still
That's a give up on it stop.
I think so. They finally got the tyre change and something else is coming out in the meantime.
One of the, just while we're talking about it, now I love the sound of these inline 4-cylinder turbocharged engines. They crackle, they pop, they sound spectacular. But if you have a little bit of a hankering for the past, well, you'll be able to hear Bring Back V10's a new podcast which celebrates a classic era when Formula One was loud on track and off it. There's a series of deep dive episodes visiting memorable stories from the world of Formula One on the-race.com. So check that one out. Gary Anderson as well. He's got a podcast where he talks through all things technical. And there's a new podcast starting, which I haven't seen yet, but it's going to be really fascinating content. It's called Hidden Voices, hosted by Claire Cottingham, and she takes a look at some of the less well-known but more diverse people in motorsports. And I think that is something that's really cool to see. Speaking of diversity, I've been asked, is this a spec racing series by sketchy Scotsman rather than sketchy Irishman who normally ask me questions? Each car, so the chassis in this series, all the cars are identical with the exception of the cooling systems and the engines, which are manufacturer specific. So there's a Toyota package and a Honda package. Well, in terms of those engines and the air intakes and stuff, there is technical development allowed in those areas. So this is a manufacturer's championship.
Tell you one thing, Sam. There's 3 drivers, Narei Fukuzumi in 5th place, Nick Cassidy in 6th, and Tomoki Nojiri in 7th place, have now found quite a bit of pace. So much so, they've actually just recently all set their fastest laps of the race. And really pumping in time, because they've taken several seconds out of the leading quartet in the last few laps alone. They're approximately gone about a second a lap faster than the leaders as it stands at the moment. They're probably too far behind, but it gives you an indication maybe of the pace that they had been kind of shelving while they were sitting in the pack earlier on in the race. They're back all in the 1 minute 36s right now.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like it might be one of the factors of Super Formula under these current regulations, which, as we say, with their temporary rules, not necessarily going to stay for the entire year without the refueling. I could see this being a little bit of a time management formula for a little while, but it does still clearly allow for split strategy. Sasahara now up to 11th, or sitting in 11th position, and closing in on Oshima and getting some points on the board. 7 seconds he's got to do on that. He's taking, well,
He's 2 seconds
a lap out of him, so he's going to be on the back of him before the end of the race and probably easily past him. So that would be great to see. And now we've got is that Nakajima? Yeah, beginning to home in on the back of this pack. I think they're looking at the lap count. They're thinking, okay, we haven't got much left in the way of tyres. Some of the guys behind us are picking up the pace, but we've got a bit of a gap. But I want to move up the order. This top 4 is ebbing and flowing a bit, but it looks like Yamashita is just gradually eating into Hirakawa's lead and sort of just waiting for the right moment, I think, to really put the hammer down.
Simon Norton asks, when is the next round and is there double headers? Yes and yes. The next round is at Okayama International Circuit, formerly known as AIDA. That's on 4 weeks' time on September the 27th, Simon. That's followed by a third round of Sportsland Suzuka on the 18th of October. Then we go to Autopolis for the fourth round on November 15th. Then there's a double header at Suzuka on December 5th and 6th. Then Fuji Speedway, the finale, the JAF Grand Prix on December 20th. Those last few races are going to be very, very interesting, Sam, seeing as how they're right dead at the beginning of winter.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about that off airly, and I've been at Fuji Speedway, as has most of the production team in mid-December, and it's not warm. There's a video elsewhere on this YouTube channel where you can see me talking to the camera about Nissans and Mount Fuji behind me. When we were filming that, I think it was -1. And I had to sort of get undressed to look like I wasn't an Eskimo so we could do the bit to camera, and then I'd rush back and get heavily dressed up again, and I felt sorry for the guy holding the camera. Not that sorry, but quite sorry. If you're watching, this is the situation for Honda. So you can tell a Honda car denoted by the little H next to a driver's name, and a Toyota driver by a T next to their name. So it's an engine war championship. It looks really bleak for Honda at the start of the race. It's improved slightly, but still the first Honda is 18 seconds down on those top 4 Toyota-powered cars. And being so close to Honda R&D and being so close to Sakura City, where these engines are built directly on the same line as Honda's Formula 1 power units, they're not going to be too happy with this pace.
Unfortunately for Fukuzumi in that leading Honda power car, he's probably left it too late. He's over 1 second a lap faster than the 4 drivers ahead of him, but the gap with only 7 laps remaining is actually just too large for him to actually close in and maybe go for a podium. So maybe a little bit too long stuck behind Sakaguchi in the initial laps of this event. As we see, it's in cars.
Something we haven't seen, because I think kind of watching the wrong car at the moment. We should be watching the Red Bull Mugen Honda. He's up into 10th position in his first ever Super Formula race, let's forget, Sasahara, subbing in for Yuri Vips. That tyre strategy is working out for him. He's not far off the back of Oshima and Makino, and he looks like that strategy is beginning to pay off quite big at the moment. He's working his way through the field, and I would love to be seeing what's going on. We're looking at Fukuzumi at the moment in the best placed Honda car. He set off and got past a bunch of cars like Kobayashi earlier on, and he's now set off on his own in the number 6 car. I think it's a bit of an ask for him to catch up with Kazuki Nakajima in the 36. He's got 18 seconds to do that, so that's something that could go very wrong for the top 4. But Kenta Yamashita, who we're also not looking at, in second position, is again beginning to close up on the race leader.
The big thing for Fukuzima at the moment, the last 5 laps, he set his fastest lap of the race on 4 separate occasions. So he's really pushing at the moment. But as you said, he's just too far behind Kazuki Nakajima in 4th to really make a dent into that. And you're right too. Kenta Yamashita, the gap is just a second now, just 9/10 of a second. He's taking a 10th out of Hirakawa, but I feel if he's going to make a push, it has to be very soon, Sam. It has to be very, very soon. We did say at the start of the race that Ryo Hirakawa won this Motegi round last season. Right now, as it stands, he's on a charge to do the same again and pick up full points from this weekend. Will Kenta Yamashita be able to deny him? And another shout out, by the way, 3rd place in the race at the moment. He qualified 2nd on the grid. Sasha Fenestra's rookie into this series, a former Renault F1 junior. He's doing a great job. Fantastic stuff so far from the young French driver.
Well, he's also not doing too badly in Super GT, where he leads the championship in his Toyota. He is really well, a lot of people question, like, well, what's the difference between the drivers in this series and in Super GT, also shown on the race as well on this channel. So hit like and subscribe if you haven't done and you want to watch some other racing action. There's an awful lot of live racing on this YouTube channel. And also hello to our friends in Canada that on Rev TV, they'll be listening into this. There's so much more action to come. What's the difference here? The difference is you've got a mix of young upcoming talent, but also really established, super experienced, established drivers like Kazuki Nakajima sitting in 4th position, who've had their top flight career. He's done his Formula 1 bit. He's gone off and done Le Mans a few times. He's still doing it, of course. But he is racing against Sasha Fennestrad, so you can really measure the performance of a driver in this championship, unlike any other major international series.
And there's a question just coming in there from Andrew Douglas. The average time lost to a pit stop is actually much shorter this year because there is no refueling at the moment. I think the average pit stop from entry to exit, I think it's in the region of 24 to 26 seconds. Now, that's obviously dependent on each particular circuit because each circuit has different pit lane lengths. But it is in around that time. When they were actually refueling as well, they were adding 7 to 8 to 9 seconds onto that. So, the loss has been around 23, 24 seconds, I believe, at Motegi.
It is, yeah, it's a difficult one to calculate because it's pit lane loss, so it is really down to the length of the pit lane. And I haven't looked at the various pit lane lengths for the Super Formula Championship. Some of them are exactly the same, like Suzuka, it's the Formula 1 pit lane, same speed limit and everything. But some of them are ones that we have to go and have a little bit more of a detailed look at. Sportsline Sugo, for example. I think it's quite a narrow pit lane with a different speed limit, whereas Fuji Speedway is a very long pit lane and it's on a straight, so the loss is a relative loss. It's quite big compared to, say, one that's got a start slow, like to Motegi, where the start-finish line is actually quite a slow section of track compared to some other parts of it. Go for it.
Sorry, so Sasahara is now just 0.6 of a second behind Oshima for the last points position, Sam. So good job by the rookie. As we understand at the moment, this is his only race in Super Formula.
Well, we're not seeing it. They're having a cracking battle at the moment, Leigh. So I think they've swapped positions one way and the other way already. So Sasahara in the battle for the final point is quite a good one.
And here we are.
There it is. And so here you go, the Red Bull livery car. He's on the fresher tyres. First time we've really seen that blue and white car in front. That's Oshima in the Toyota powered car. And he is defending like hell, but he's not. I'm surprised he's managed to keep Sasahara behind him now.
It's a decent job actually by Oshima, who actually started 17th to make his way up to the points as he has so far. It's actually a really, really good job. He'd be disappointed to lose it. The pace Sasahara's got, it really shouldn't take. And look, they've all got full overtaking boost. Sasahara's hit the button. That light is flashing on the roll hoop. He didn't make best use of it there, though, did he? I think that's a sign of inexperience. This is his first Super Formula race, and he didn't know quite the best time to deploy that overtaking boost system. Just a note, by the way, for Kazuya Oshima, 10th place there, defending from Sasahara. He's driving with Rookie Racing this year. This is actually a new team to Super Formula. It has actually been run out of Tsuruma Motorsports cars, so the team that actually runs the Ing cars are running this car as well, but it is in fact a separate one-car team. As we see Sasahara, is he trying to line up Oshima again? Has a look, doesn't quite make the definitive move. For 10th place. He was outside the points when he went into his stop. I believe he was 12th or 13th place, if I remember correctly. So if he can even make 1 point, it would be a bit of a win for Sasahara. Good job so far, I must say, for the Japanese 24-year-old Japanese driver.
Well, I think he's good. I'm amazed he hasn't made this past stick yet. I think when he gets the overtaking boost system, so once you've used it, you can't use it again. But Oshima, with that experience, has managed to hold him off so far without deploying his own overtaking boost system. And Sasahara will be a bit shocked when he hits it that Oshima will hit his own button and the two of them will be side by side. But I don't know if it'll be so easy to get past. Lap 33 or 35, he's got to get it done soon because Makino's the next target.
And he's got a bit of a wobble coming out of that corner, Sam. So he's when he's actually exiting the corner, it's not quite as, he hasn't quite lined up as stable as he wanted. So he's getting a bit of a wiggle on, and that's actually losing him time.
Yeah, absolutely is.
Course,
I've seen that a few times. He's got his overtaking boost back, Leigh. He's got, so keep an eye on that top, on the roll hoop of the Red Bull liveried car.
He's used up the best of his tyres at this stage as well, as he tries again. No, it's not. He's not getting it, Sam. He's not getting it right at all at this point.
I think that's inexperience, Leigh. He's using it at the wrong point on circuit. He should be using it here, but he should be pressing the button here then to make the move stick. But that's why I assume he's just looking at him going, "You're not going to get it done there, son."
Of course, now as we come to the end of this race, it is, as we mentioned earlier on, there's a new point system in this round. As we see Tatiana Calderon 12th place running at the moment. It's a new point system this season. It was qualifying, top 3 in qualifying got points. It was 3 for pole, 2 for second place, 1 for third on the grid. And in the race winner gets 20, second place gets 15, third place gets 11, fourth place gets 8, and then from 5th down to 10th it goes 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And only the best 5 results of your best 5 weekend results of the 7 rounds will actually count towards the final standings, and that's in place to accommodate for drivers who are having to miss rounds due to the Japanese quarantine provisions amidst the coronavirus pandemic.
It's an interesting one, that they've introduced that best of 5 rule, and actually I think it's only really benefiting Yuri Vips, but nonetheless. I think I wonder if Team Mugen, because Sasahara's put in quite a good account for himself. There he is. Still having misused his overtake boost, he's going to have to do this without the overtaking system. As the clouds are getting quite dark there, we're not going to get rain at this point, but I think there's a thunderstorm coming to Twin Ring Motegi, which the Super Formula Lights drivers won't fancy.
Sam, actually, just to briefly go back to when you mentioned about the best 5 results, I think partially that had something to do with, up until about a week and a half ago, we were also looking at the possibility that the likes of Yamashita, Nakajima and Kobayashi also weren't going to be racing. It was only a late change, as we see Sasahara get a wiggle on as he exits the corner again. It was only a late change from the Japanese Interior Ministry to reduce their quarantine down to 7 days. I think it's to do specifically with the Japanese sports people, that they were actually able to take part in this race. So I think when that rule was drawn up, they were expecting probably far more absentees in this race than what we have got actually for the event.
That's exactly the situation, but don't tell Heikki Kovalainen about those 7 days quarantine, because he had to spend just over 2 weeks in a Japanese hotel room. I think he got exceptionally bored. No, we had a nice chat before the Super GT race last week, where he made his return, and it went quite well. That you can watch that on this channel. There's over 8,000 people watching us in real time here on the race. Watching the final lap of the opening round of the 2020 Super Formula Championship. This is the battle for the final point of the season, but that is the battle for the race lead. They finally woken up and they're going at it. Will Kenta Yamashita, we're finishing the drivers' names for each other, Leigh. Will Kenta Yamashita be able to do it? He's running out of overtaking boost, though. You can see his roll hoop has gone red. He's running out of that extra fuel flow. I think he's not going to be able to get any more boost this lap. Will he be able to get a run done on Hirakawa for the lead? There's 5 attempts in it.
And Kenta Yamashita dropped back into the 36 in the later laps, but I think he's left it too late, Sam. Half a second, the gap may be, but I think Hirakawa may just have enough to cover to the end of the lap. He's getting good exits out of the corner, is Hirakawa, and that is just enough at the moment to keep Yamashita at bay.
Well, yeah, I mean, Yamashita has given a driving lesson to the field so far, but I think you're absolutely right. He's left it too late. But if you look in second position there, Yamashita was not on the apex there into the right-hander, and that's cost him a bit of time. And without the overtaking boost system down this backstretch, he's just not got anything for the race leader. And I think it's going to be, this is going to be the order of the finish. But this is Japanese racing, so everybody knows what happens. But here we go, coming out of the final corner, and the victory in round 1 of the 2020 Super Formula season goes to the pole sitter and new lap record holder, Ryo Hirakawa, with Team Impul. Cancelling Team's Tom driver comes home. Nakajima comes home in 4th position.
Fantastic job. fantastic job there by Hirakawa. As I said earlier on in the race, he won the Motegi round last season and does so again to start this 2020 season. As we see,
Leigh, there's 7 and 8 come across, but who's going to come across the line for that final point? We're looking at the wrong cars. That's Tatiana Calderon, but there was that battle for the last point between the 10th position, and we're not seeing that. Makino gets 9th. Oshima comes across the line, and Sasahara lost time on the final lap, and
I think
Calderon is wheel to wheel now for a position they nearly hit going under the bridge, and well, that's going to be some angry racing across the finish line, but Calderon holds the position across the line. There will be words about that post-race, and I don't think Naoki Yamamoto is going to be happy with that.
No, that was quite a switchback across the track there. Naoki Yamamoto, of course, on slightly newer tyres, trying to get past Calderon. Didn't quite work, as we see. Ryo Hirakawa, not just race winner, championship leader as well. 23 points he's bagged this weekend for qualifying on pole and converting that into a race win. It wasn't.
Yeah.
He may have led every lap, Sam, but it wasn't the easiest races for him. Kenta Yamashita was there every single second. Well, I think a single mistake by Hirakawa and Yamashita would have been through.
Well, we should be hearing, I think, from Sasha Fenestraz at the end of this race. So stay with us for the interviews and the race podium here on the-race.com. Don't forget as well, we've got Belgian Grand Prix coming up later on. All the latest news, response, previews, reaction from the guys at the track in Spa-Francorchamps. And then we've got the Indycar race tonight as well. So that's
just a nod as well, Sam. Kazuya Oshima in that battle with Sasahara for 10th place. He actually set his fastest lap on the final lap of the race, which was almost 2 seconds a lap slower than some of those ahead of him. Fukuzumi and Cassidy also set their fastest laps on the final lap of the race. They're in the mid-35, so unfortunately too far behind the top 4 to really make it count for anything. But still solid points for Cassidy, the reigning champion, having qualified down in 11th. But I think he'll still be a little bit disappointed that it's only 6th.
Yeah, I mean, I think the organisers of Super Formula at JRP are going to go and take a look at this race and go and have a think about maybe the tyres, maybe asking Yokohama to bring either a step softer or a step harder tyres for the next race in about a month's time.
You mentioned that, Sam, actually, because Yokohama, from what I'm led to believe, we're actually in the process of developing what we would call a super soft tyre. But they haven't quite got the compound quite ready to what they were looking to achieve, so it has not been implemented as yet. So we will be listening out for updates on that. So hopefully that still may come eventually, but I don't think it's going to be this season. Maybe not.
Yeah, I think it won't be this season, but I think we may see some slight tweaks to the regulations for next time out, because it did look a little bit like it was a bit too much of a tyre. Miss Hoshino-san helping his driver out of the car. Team Impul. He's not wearing a blue shirt because he only wears that for Super GT. It's going to be an interesting one, but of course later on this channel there's definitely going to be some overtaking at Brands Hatch in Kent coming up. So hit like and subscribe to get us to 3,000 likes. If we get to 3,000 likes, we are going to bring you the British GT Championship from Brands Hatch, and there you're guaranteed overtaking there. So that is going to be fantastic action. I might try and catch a bit of it in person at the track.
If we get to 3,000 likes, we will actually let Sam out of his cupboard so that he can get to Brands Hatch to watch the race.
Well, I have to drive past Brands Hatch immediately after this race anyway to go and get ready for the Belgian Grand Prix. But I would love to go and get into Brands Hatch after the Belgian Grand Prix, because I think that race will still be going on just about then. Well, there he is. Yeah, he is very happy. First win of the year, denoted by the mandatory single finger. And he looks at each cameraman in turn, politely. It's the way they do it in Japan. Then he'll take off his crash helmet shortly and probably do the same thing. Note the Red Bull logo on the side of his crash helmet. That's quite important. Another Red Bull back driver. Kenneth King, thank you for joining us here, as has all of the members of this channel. Don't forget, hit like and subscribe. If you're a member, I think you get access to all sorts of goodies, and you can chat to us about all sorts of different stuff, and you get direct responses from us, but everybody does really anyway, because that's the way we do things. But I'm going to give you a little list of names as they go and look for the podium. Brandon Boyles, Duran Gunderson, Scott Murdoch, Jim Jordan. Wales taste great. They don't really. Connor Familton, Mark Dianoso, Smoke Whitehall. Anime Fashion. There was an Anime Fashion car out there. Brap! Exclamation mark. Pile Driver Media Group. Joe Morgantini, Nicholas Busby, Dufet 81, Team Gearhead, Baker KC, Waifu Wars Racing, Turbo Black, Angelo Lazarte, Lam Jackie, Tyler Schneider, Jesse Alexander, Jan Echterman, Xiang Zhu, Stephen Manguino, Scott Jacobs, William Henderson, Mina Alwadi, Stephen Jackman, Robert N.R. Bell, Jonathan Sheeran, Klaus Drobnak, Hugh Messenger. He invented a really famous thing that's on a lot of websites. JDM Chunky, Paolo DL, Paddy L. Cubed, Tom Porter, Argo 2077, Brian McCoy, James M. Dan Hearn, Henrik Jakimski, Ghostwriter, GG0454-1, Antonio Yelamos, Scott Clancy, Bull Yacht, Vito Dominguez, Simo Solutions Official, Andre Frigon, Mark Scruggs, Charles Sturgeon, Andrew Chichon, Captain Buck, Old School Raver, Arthur Corona, Martin 88, AJ Rottini, Richard Loop, he's the Wolf, Leyland Lisette, Buzz Bayliss, Darian Quinn, Cloud, Bucktie, Thomas Lassou, TRB 454, Bruce Corretz, Walter Merler, Robbie Frankovic, Paul Montechinos, Robbie G, Desmo Pilot, GPA 95, MP Rally Videos. Username is in use, Gorm Pisces 19, Dogface Morcane. Thanks to all of you for making it possible for us to bring you races like this on Super Formula, British GT later today, and so much more racing action, including the Nürburgring Endurance Series, which I've forgotten the name of, but used to be VLN.
I think it's Nordschleife Endurance Series. I think it's just NES now. Hirakawa's win, that's actually his second Super Formula win, his second at Motegi. He's picked up a lot of podiums in the last couple of years as well, so possible this could be his final attempt, or at last his attempt to make a championship charge. As we hear from Hirakawa now. Possibly.
Yeah, Hirakawa's got a Puma branded mask there. It's very fashionable. He doesn't seem too excited about winning, does he?
I think, do you know what? It's probably still so hot there, Sam. It would not surprise me if he's actually quite drained.
That's actually quite a good point, and I think you can see a bit of sweat on that forehead. I always see this at the end of races. Drivers have to put their winner's caps on, and all they really want to do is cool down. You don't want to be putting your hat on your head. Hoshino-san, they're looking quite chilled out in comparison, actually. You look at the two drivers.
I wonder if you get air conditioning on the pit wall.
I think there is a track that has that, and it's quite ridiculous. I don't use air conditioning in my road car. It's got windows, isn't it? Hoshino-san just saying he's happy for the race win. I think he's probably going to be talking about, I'm not actually listening to him, but he's probably going to be talking about, he's very happy, he's thanks his sponsors, all the usual stuff. But also I think he'll probably make a point with all of his experience in racing, because he's the fastest man in Japan. He's going to be suggesting that maybe the series needs to have a thing, but it could be the nature of Twin Ring Motegi. Going to the next race, it will be maybe different on the tyres.
Actually, just an interesting point to note as well, Sam, with the having to use race fuel and no mandatory pit stops. The lap record, the Super Formula lap record around Motegi is 1 minute 31.8. The fastest lap here today just was 3.5 seconds outside that. So that gives you something.
That gives you an example, yeah. That's the tyres, but simply down to that tyre wear. That lap record, by the way, was set this morning by that man, not Hoshino. Hirakawa. He says thank you.
Well, in terms of the actual race lap record held by Nojiri from 2017.
No, I think, was that not a qualifying record there, Leigh?
No, that was a lap record. That was a race lap record.
Well, there you go then. That's why they're using the harder tyre then, and that sums it up. So the cars are a little bit struggling with the heat, with the compounds, and
I think full race fuel probably has meant managing that as well to a degree.
Now, stay with us. We will go to the podium, so we'll keep on talking about this for a little while longer as Hoshino looks to his driver. They've lost the second and third position cars.
Yamashita actually went straight into the pits. I don't know where Fenestras has gone.
Well, my timing screen says, he's doing another posed photo with the finger again. Fenestras is out there somewhere, according to the timing screen. He hasn't entered the pit.
Is he still lapping?
It's a very slow lap if he is. Oh, there's the mandatory can of Red Bull. Look, there you go. That's been bought out by Hirakawa. Being a Toyota-backed driver makes entry to Formula One a little bit harder at the moment. I did hear rumours last time he was in Japan, which was far too long ago now, but due to the travel restrictions, I haven't been back for a while. Well, there's the race result. Let's talk about that. Ryo Hirakawa wins. Kenta Yamashita, second position. Sasha Fenestras, Kazuki Nakajima, Nirei Fukuzumi, Nick Cassidy in sixth, which was a big improvement, actually. Tomoki Nojiri, Hirakawa Ishihara, Tadasuke Makino, and Kazuya Oshima talented to defend from the guy in 11th position and get that final point, Leigh.
Indeed. And as I said, Oshima setting his fastest lap of the race on the final lap of the race, doing just enough to keep Ukyo Sasahara behind him. And we see the bottom half of the field. Ukyo Sasahara there, 11th place. Tatiana Calderon had a bit of a tussle with Naoki Yamamoto on that final lap. Kamui Kobayashi ended up 14th after his contretemps earlier on in the race. Toshika Oyu had issues earlier on in the race, meant he was in the pits for most of the start of the race. Yuji Kunimoto had an off. Yuhi Sekiguchi spun off after being hit. Sho Suboi went off into the gravel in the first lap of the race. That's disappointing for Sho Suboi. He was hoping really for a much better start to his season.
It's not bad for Calderon. You've got to think about Tatiana Calderon from her point of view. First race in Super Formula. You know, for a young driver to come to a country that is quite so different to your home nation as Japan is, and then to be battling on the final lap, wheel to wheel with Naoki Yamamoto, who is a double champion in this series and Super GT. He's one of the top drivers in Japan at the moment. You know, Jensen Button calls him the dude. That's pretty impressive for her. Well, here's some of the race highlights. I'm not quite sure this is going to be the longest clip, but the start was quite exciting. So let's see it twice.
You see Hirakawa gets off the line and Kenta Yamashita just behind jumps into second place. Was Fenestras immediately goes into third place. He fought off, I think it was Fukuzumi and Nakajima coming around turn one. That is Sho Suboi going off the track. I think he just seemed to go wide by himself and was drafted by the curbs into the gravel. He actually had a left front puncture there from what I can see. Now this is Oyu with his issues. I'm assuming it was an electrical issue that caused him to stop, while this is Nakajima trying to get past Fenestras in the early laps. Fenestras defended brilliantly to maintain third place. This was another battle. Now this, I believe, if you look in the background, no, I'm thinking of something else completely different. This is actually Fukuzumi getting by Kobayashi. I think we'll see in a moment the incident where Yamamoto in the background there hits Kobayashi. That was where they had their issues. Yamamoto breaking his and Kobayashi getting a puncture. And this is Sekiguchi fighting off Fukuzumi. Now, they did touch, and then Sekiguchi goes into this corner. He has a puncture and flies off the circuit into the gravel. They actually touched a few corners before that. And it looked initially like Sekiguchi may have broken his front wing, but maybe didn't. And in the later laps, we saw Hirakawa defending against Kenta Yamashita, but maintaining the gap to take the win and the championship lead, 23 points for Hirakawa to lead the standings going into the second round at Okayama in 4 weeks' time.
Okayama, very different circuit to Twin Ring Motegi. Older track, and one that perhaps is more conducive to overtaking, but more conducive to general excitement and sometimes oddness. It's the podium here at Twin Ring Motegi, and standing alone by the look of it, well, clearly not alone, but alone on our screen anyway, is Hirakawa. But he does have a friend there. That's the team boss of...
Where are the Kondo drivers?
Yeah, that's... okay. Well, that's
so I'm not sure if that is the Kondo team manager, but we haven't.
There's one. Go. There's one. There's Fenestras. He's found himself. We hadn't seen him for a while. I'm not quite sure what that was about. Maybe he was struggling with the heat, perhaps. But he's back. And yeah, well, Well, they've got fairly conventional trophies here at Twin Ring Motegi as the Japanese national anthem plays again.
Those of you who were somewhat eagle-eyed may have noticed on Fenestras's race suit, he doesn't just have a French flag, but a French flag. He actually also has, on his little belt thing, he actually has an Argentine flag as well. He was born to Argentine and French parents. He was born in France, but actually was raised in Cordoba, Argentina. So he's technically races under the French flag, the dual nationality driver with both flags on his race suit.
I was going to ask you that, but you answered before. I already did. Anyway, he's wearing a trophy as a hat, big base trophy. But I reckon that trophy would be great without the base on it.
Did Yamashita just go out and get changed?
No, I don't think that is Yamashita. It's hard. I'm pretty sure that's not Yamashita. With a face mark on, it's a little bit hard to tell, but I'm pretty certain that is not Kenta Yamashita.
No, because I thought that's the team boss, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we saw the pole to win. I don't know what these cards are. I don't know hang on, what have they got? What have they got there, Leigh? What are they holding? What's that?
It looks like an advertisement for peanuts.
No, I don't think that's
or the Teletubbies.
No, is that a yam? Oh, one of our production team absolutely loves yam. It's one of his favourite foods. So if you ever hear anybody who's a motorsport producer in there in Japan, make sure you feed them only yam. He absolutely loves it. It's his absolute favourite. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. So I think that is the yam. I think that's a yam anyway. I'm going to be criticised now on social media for not knowing my pulses, vegetables, juices, fruits. But nonetheless, yam, big trophies. I think that'd be a really nice trophy there without the big base on it. So I'm interested because you've got the Japanese national anthem for the winner. I wonder if when Sasha Fenestrad wins a race, which national anthem do you get?
French.
Do you not get both?
No, I think it goes by the lead nationality on the license, which in his case would be French.
Now, Leigh, looking at the graphic on your screen, of course you can translate, but what it says is the next race in the Super Formula Championship is coming up on the 27th of September, just about a month's time. And as the drivers grab a bit of booze, or is it water?
I think that's water. Do you know what, Sam? That's the other thing. Kenta Yamashita went straight into the pits. As we mentioned earlier on, Nattori didn't take part today because of heat exhaustion. The temperature is 40 degrees plus out there. I wonder maybe if because Yamashita went straight into the pits from the track, he did not actually go anywhere near. He didn't take his car to the Parc Fermé at all. So I wonder maybe if he's actually just resting or gone straight to medical centre for hydration.
I wonder that as well, because both Condé drivers disappear. I think Fenestrad didn't reappear until the podium as well. So I think there was possibly a team call to say, look, if you guys are struggling with this, go and have a relax. Because look, you've only got 2 out of the 3 drivers. As there's lots more motorsport coming up, so don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We're going to be looking at a few other little bits and pieces before we close this broadcast, but it seems that we've got a race every single week, and of course we do. There is one of our regular collaborators, Sonia, walking back. Just looking behind, if you can see next to Sonia is walking along, you see that sort of plastic cover, and you probably saw there's some go-karts underneath that. That's a little go-kart ride as part of the old mobility land facility at Twin Ring Motegi. Those karts, I think, have been under that cover for a very long time, because when I last was up on that part of the track, there were trees growing up through some of them, so it looks like they might have tidied them up. There is one of those karts, circuit karts. to get to. These are the ones that still run, actually. So the ones that are up on the back of the track are the ones that don't run properly. You can go and pay easy money, and you can go and do a lap of the racetrack. Here we're getting an interview with. Well, we're going to go through some of the field then with the different interview. Okay, we're not going to. We're going to go back to Sonia and drivers walking. If you're a fan of looking at the rear end of drivers and commentators, well, there you go.
So we see the drivers just wandering along.
I mean, this reminds me a little bit of that clip of Sebastian Vettel lost in the desert in Bahrain. And just imagine that someone can put like a Western soundtrack over these guys. Just, I mean, they're walking an awfully long way, right? I from the finish line, Twin Ring Motegi. I mean, they've walked past race control. I don't know where they're going actually. Are they going to go and talk to the fans?
Where is the podium in regards to the actual start finish? Because that's they're into pit lane now. So where is the podium with regards to?
I don't know, but you need an ordnance survey map to find it, apparently.
So is the podium in the grandstand?
No, that's the pit. They're in the pit lane now. So they finished that on the straight, and now they're walking back to try and find the podium.
Going into the press conferences now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that was. They were doing there. That was.
Big cars parked on the oval.
Yeah, shame that oval isn't really in use. They run a car on it every now and again. The Honda Racing Thanks Day, which is a Honda Motorsport event at the end of each year. That's been cancelled for 2020, unfortunately. But they have run Formula One cars around on that oval. But through one of the corners there, the track was damaged by that tragic earthquake over a decade ago now. And that was a real shame. So that
was Takuma Sato, wasn't it, in the Honda, I believe, many years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So that award, we've been told, was the award of Motegi Town. I've been to Motegi Town many times, and it's not a tourist hotspot. So let's have a look back at the race highlights again. There's that race start, and the key moment there, Sasha Fenestraz moving to the right, dropped a position. Then there was some more overtaking. There was lots of fast cuts going on. And someone in the production office has really hit that on the front. There you can see the damage done to that front wing and the result and the spin. And this was the opening round of the 2020 Super Formula Championship on the-race.com. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We've got another Super Formula race coming up in a month's time. Don't forget to talk to us on @WeAreTheRace. And I am @NorthwestSam. And thanks for watching us. Leo Gorman has been Leo Gorman.